Hello, nerdlings.
Hey, nerdlings.
So, if we've been keeping track right, and forgive us if we're wrong, I believe this is our 100th video.
Ding, ding, ding! Woo, 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 woo!
So this is pretty cool. I mean, we recently hit 100 subscribers. Now we're hitting our 100th video.
I cannot believe we've already hit
I know.
both of those goals. That's incredible. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you. And as a way of saying thank you, I wanted to kind of celebrate this occasion by giving you guys a closer look at the game room.
Yeah.
And just so you know, this isn't just some boring game room. Oh, it does have a name. This is Mr. and Mrs. Weston's peculiar home for wayward games and extraordinary consoles.
Yes.
And that name is definitely just kind of because it's fun to have a long name for something.
It is, and you can't ever remember it or get it right unless you've written it down.
And of course, it's wayward games because games can go either way, but extraordinary consoles because no matter what, they've always been awesome consoles.
And
so,
I will say we have claimed that, so if you do come to our game room, you can check in to that title. So we have put that into the whatever that is, the geosphere, I don't know what it is. But anyway, when you go to check in, it shows up.
So, without further ado, if I may, let me show you around.
Game room time!
Alright, so the main area of the game room, obviously, is the console setup behind me. We do have two of the old school boob tube TVs, and that is both for nostalgic purpose, and of course, anyone, if they want to play a light gun game, we can. So starting with the consoles, everything is hooked up and ready to go. Most everything is done up through an audio-video switch. I haven't really shelled out the money to do anything, bigger than that. But we do have the Atari family for the most part here. You have the classic wood grain Atari 6-switch. And sitting on top of him is the Atari Junior 2600. Next to them is the Atari 7800, which was backwards compatible with the 2600. Something that the massive 5200 was not. And of course, I love the look of the cube shelves, but obviously this beast does not fit in there properly. He barely fits in there sideways. Next to them, just for fun, is the TurboGrafx 16. As of right now, I only have the base console. I don't have the CD attachment. I would love to get that. This was always a very cool console to me. I was always just infatuated with the idea of there being a third 16-bit system out there, growing up with the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. And Paul is going to come in and check things out, make sure that everything's going all right. Just a little note, most of these systems we've managed to get cheap in some way or another. I believe the 5200 actually came from Lady Lacey's grandmother, of all people, so surprise there.
Yeah, and I didn't know that my grandmother had that 5200, and just so you know, I am operating the camera, so there's not some weird disembodied voice behind you. Woo, scary!
Some of the systems we do have the boxes for. The TurboGrafx we have the box for. It is really tore up. Just kind of a fun note. I bought that about 7 or 8 years ago. I think I got it for $30 complete in the box. You do not see that on the TurboGrafx nowadays. Underneath the futon, just to pull out real quick, we have some plug-and-plays in a little tote. And this includes the things like the Atari Flashback. We have these fun little Sega Genesis systems that, aside from the controller, they actually come with, now that I can't find it, they come with a little Sega Genesis console. There's a virtual station, just kind of a knockoff thing. Tons and tons of just plug and play, mostly the Who Care things. We also have, it's a fairly bad shape because the top plastic case has been cracked, but we have the Atari 26 Black system, or the Vader system as it was known. Of course, we have some nicer cartridges that we could set in there, but everything that came with this, I've just kind of left it in there after some much needed cleaning. This guy was not pretty when we found him. But it is the wood grain video game organizer plastic tray because, you know, back in the late 70s, early 80s, everything had to be wood grain. It all had to look good. Now up top, we are big amiibo collectors. That includes every amiibo that's been released. And we've also collected some of the dioramas. The dioramas only came out in Japan, which is a shame because they are so cool looking. And they really make for some great display pieces. Now, obviously, you probably saw that the Wii U has been relegated to the game room now. We do have the nice Zelda one, and it's so pretty, but oh man, what a shame that that system didn't stick around a little longer. But look how gorgeous that is, other than all the dust, because with the Switch, yeah, we don't get a whole lot of Wii U time in. And sitting behind it is the Power Glove. Pretty much everybody that comes over does want to try it on. We let them, and anybody that actually does play it pretty much agrees with Lucas.
It's so bad.
Back onto the consoles. Again, there's the Wii U. Now, the Zelda edition, all of the pretties were on the gamepad. There's nothing special about the Wii U console itself. It's just a black console. We have the GameCube, and it does have the Game Boy player adapter on the bottom. An absolute must. The fact that this thing plays Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance games. Oh, I love it so much because it's perfect. Who wants to sit and play on a handheld if they don't have to, right? Still waiting on Nintendo to do something like this for DS and 3DS games.
Yes, there's so many games I want Tom to play for me, and I don't want to watch it on a teeny tiny little screen.
Below that, we have a couple of Xbox 360 systems, the white one and the black one. I think the black one is the slim one. I might be reversing those. And in the middle is the little Xbox 360 HD DVD drive because, you know, it was a separate piece. It wasn't built into the machine. And yeah, big competitor for the Blu-ray.
So much for being an all-in-one system if you had to have a second controller or console thingy.
Still holding out hope that HD DVD will pull ahead of Blu-ray. I'm telling you, it's the wave of the future.
I would like to point out, though, we had a friend of ours make us that star for our tree topper.
Yes, they 3D printed that, and that thing is huge. Whenever I'm down here, I'm pretty sure it's going to fall and give me a concussion.
But thank you guys so much. That was awesome. We love it.
We have, speaking of the top, we have a Nintendo 64 cartridge tray and a couple of display boxes from the store. Actually, this one was from Nintendo when we got our little statue that the creepy guys got their face all up in your business on the camera. But moving back down to the consoles, we have the Nintendo 64. We've got the nice smoky one that's a little bit translucent, so you can see all the inner workings because, hey, it was the 90s and we wanted to see inside everything. Below that is the original Xbox, and with it, the Duke controller. So in case you are a grizzly bear who likes to play video games, there's a controller for you.
Is that the one with the fan in it?
No, no, it could use it. It could probably house a turbine engine in that thing.
We do have one of the controllers, though, that the grips have fans built into it.
We have a nice Super Nintendo. If you can notice this, there is hardly any yellowing at all, a little bit around the front controller ports. We actually found this that way. We have not done anything to swap out the pieces, you know, the nice clean pieces, getting rid of the yellow pieces. So they're out there. The pretty ones are still out there. Below that are the two PS2s. You have the original and the super teeny tiny slim. I still cannot get over how small this thing is. It's awesome. And for the record, that PS2, that is a day one PS2. I was so excited to get that. On my calendar it said PS2, baby, for like months before the release. At the time it was Babbage's before they were gone. And they even called to make sure I was going to be there to pick it up because, oh, if I was going to be there on launch day, they were selling it to somebody else. Finally, you have the PS1. Oh, both PS1s. The PS1 with the numeral 1 and the PS1 with it spelled out. Again, kind of the nice little design. These are the ones I believe that you would often see with the LCD screen attachment that you could put on the back to make them portable. This thing's about the size of a of a Discman from the 90s, I think, so you could probably put it in your jean shorts, your jorts. Along with the Super Nintendo, we have the second model, the Mini, the Super Nintendo 2, however you want to call it. But this was released later in the life cycle. It's a lot more rounded and everything instead of all the blocky, edged ones of the original.
I think it looks a lot more like the Super Famicom.
It really does. Just kind of a fun fact, I don't know if anybody knew this, I'm sure gamers, collectors did, but the design, the whole purpose of the design for this was to keep you from putting drinks on it. The original NES, the toaster, the boxed one, the blocky one, a lot of people kept putting their drinks on it. It would spill onto the system, into the vents, mess up the console. So Nintendo went out of their way to make sure you weren't going to do that anymore and made a system that was a lot harder to put drinks on. This one, probably just as hard because it just slid right off. We have the FZ10 model of 3DO. The nice thing about this one was that it does not have the movable tray. So there are less moving parts to go wrong in it, which is usually a big problem with a lot of consoles, including the PS2, that would have that tray that would actually kind of eject out and you'd have to put the disc in. So this one does just open from the top. You put the disc right in. Less problems, but it still doesn't work. Go figure. Now, on top of our other TV, you may have noticed a nice little one-up mushroom and power-up mushroom and a ba-bomb, complete with feet and fuse, and even a little turnkey on the back. And these crocheted masterpieces were made by Lady Lacy herself.
That was one of my New Year's resolutions. I wanted to teach myself how to make those little crochet creatures, and of course I'm going to make video game ones.
She did awesome, didn't she, guys? So back to the consoles. There's so many. We have the Sega Genesis. This is the Mark II, the one that's a little smaller as far as the size, and it fits a little better right next to the Sega CD, the side-by-side unit. I would love to actually get the bottom unit. I have seen it before, but I hate paying the prices that I've seen it before because it's like technically we have it. I like getting some console variations, but I don't, want to break the bank just to get them. Now, just if you, in case you do have the longer Sega Genesis, there is actually a plastic extender so that that unit will fit on this same tray and it won't have that overhang. And of course, with it being longer, it does not fit in the shelf the proper way. Below that is the Dreamcast. Obviously, a lot of people are very familiar with the Dreamcast. We have the typical white model. I know that there's a black, was it a sports model? Maybe like a football? I think there was a blue one. I know there are all kinds of crazy other colors too once you get into Japan. I believe Metal Jesus recently showed off a Hello Kitty version.
They have Hello Kitty everything.
They really do. Over here we have the Sega Saturn buried amongst the cables. The Sega Saturn is a really cool system. It was fairly popular in Japan. It really is a shame that it didn't have more time over here because it would have been really neat to see what it could have brought to the table. I think a lot of people were still kind of soured by the Sega CD, and of course, Sega was popping out new systems every other month, it seemed, for a while. We have the Sega Master System, which is always fun to bring out to people that come over to the game room. Anytime people think of Sega, they think of the Genesis. So knowing that they had an 8-bit system that came before kind of blows people's minds. And it gets real fun once you start showing them the cards that would go in there instead of just the regular cartridges. Of course, you don't even need to worry about the Master System if you have the power-based converter. So this nice little thing plugs into your Sega Genesis because everything plugs into that Sega Genesis. We don't judge though. But up top, it has a cartridge slot so you can play your Master System games on your Sega Genesis. So it's kind of a neat piece, and of course it has the card input, and a very clever way for Sega to introduce some backwards compatibility to their system. Not that a lot of people in the States knew about the Master System anyway. And of course, you have to have another add-on for the Genesis in the form of the 32X, because the only thing cooler than CDs after the Sega CD is going right back to cartridges, right? On the top shelf, I have the NES top loader out. I was testing some games the other day, so I kind of hooked it up to this TV really quick. The top loader came out at the end of the NES life cycle. Kind of a great way to reintroduce people to NES games as the Super Nintendo was coming out and everything. And this thing, oh, top loaders work like a dream. It's so great not having to fiddle with the box system and get them in just the right spot, you know, do your little voodoo dance. But we do have some more Amiibo up here. I love the display shelves that the Amiibo come on. We have Bowser with his fireballs, and you can twist it and it will turn around, but it's one of those annoyingly loud ones. We have a lovely ceramic piece painted by yours truly. And I have carpal tunnel, so that was a feat, trust me. And then finally we have a little Wii display shelf here. Of course, the Wii itself is there, and it holds a couple of remotes and nunchucks and everything. We do have, oh my gosh, it doesn't want to come out, the Wii Mini. So,
because the Wii was so big, we needed a mini.
It was massive. There was no space for it, but the Wii Mini. So another thing that is about the size of a 90s walk or Discman. But was this released in America, or was this like a Canada only thing? Because I thought I'd heard someone say it was all Canada. But either way, this was like a $2 find at a flea market or a yard sale, by the way. So that was kind of neat. And on the bottom, just kind of a fun little thing to show you guys. I have some of these pouches here, and what I do is if I do not have the box of a game, I put the manuals in there. And it's a great way to keep them safe. It keeps them well protected. Obviously, you can alphabetize them. But I really like this. I thought it was a clever idea just to throw some manuals in there, just to keep them safe. And if you're going to fight some zombies on the Dreamcast, make sure you have the Dreamcast keyboard. Or if you're going to get online, I believe Lady Lacy had a couple of friends, and that was their way of getting online.
Yes, I did. And everyone remembers the Dreamcast for the being able to copy games and shared burned DVDs, or not DVDs but CDs.
Doing the Bleemcast thing. So we didn't have a great way to display the handhelds. We didn't want to use up the shelf space or anything with the really awesome stands like from Rose Colored Gaming. So we kind of came up with a somewhat temporary but somewhat, fairly brilliant way of working because it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. We use what?
It's a shoe rack.
Just a shoe rack,
yeah.
Like a hanging shoe rack?
It's a hanging shoe rack.
So yeah, the pockets are perfect because it holds everything individually, and with the clear front you can see what's in there and everything, so you can see what handhelds you have available. They rest in there gently so they're not getting damaged or crushed or anything like that. And so from the top we found this Intex Electronics one that was a yard sale pickup. We have the original ColecoVision, and I do not think we have any batteries in any of these.
Hasn't that been used in a couple sci-fi movies as like the computer
so.
pads?
Wasn't this used in one of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies? Maybe the second one?
I think so, yeah. I think he actually converted that one.
Of course, it has just the red dots that go across the field. We have the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. Oh, you can see how 90s it is because you can see right through it. Woo!
Oh my gosh, I know everything in the 90s. Phones, games, everything. They wanted to see through everything.
The Game Boy Pocket, because at the time the Game Boy was way too big to put in your pocket. It's not like it was a Game Gear or anything.
Hey, that's the size of some cell phones these days, so.
My original Game Boy Advance, I loved this thing. It wasn't from the 90s, so I don't know why you can see through it. But I had a lot of fun with this. Obviously, the only problem was you could barely see the screen. It needed some kind of lighting. Of course, they fixed that with some little Game Boy Advance SPs. Now, this is actually an uglier one that we have. We found it really cheap at a yard sale. We have a couple of others, and I think that they're plugged into the GameCube right now. A lot of great
Because we're playing Four Swords.
Yes, I was going to say a lot of great game ideas with like Four Swords. So you go into a house and it doesn't disrupt what's on the screen. It shows up on your screen. Stuff like that was brilliant. Got the Guitar Hero frets on there. I believe you guys have seen the Game Boy Micro from our super fan Steve here on YouTube.
I think only 5-year-olds can use it.
Yeah, you know, I'm still worried that I'm gonna swallow this one day and have to go to the hospital. But we've got the Game Boy camera as well as the printer with some paper, so you know we can print off some selfies. We have the e-reader for the Game Boy Advance. I loved the idea of this in that it gave you bonus levels for things like Super Mario Advance 2, which was Super Mario 3, is that right? Could be butchered. But it was also a neat idea that you could get some of the smaller arcade games like Ice Climbers and everything. The full game just by scanning cards, you know, way of the future. We have a nice family of DS's. So you've got the original, then you've got the Lite, you've got the DSi, you've got the XL, we got the 25th anniversary Super Mario one because, hey, it's Mario. You gotta have your Mario stuff. Elsewhere in the house, we do have a 3DS, a 3DS XL, and...
The new 3DS.
The new 3DS. Which, I mean, it's a couple of years old now, but it's new because of the name. New.
Yeah, that was kind of not a brilliant plan from Nintendo to start naming everything the new.
In the video with everybody picking up with us, I showed off the Game Gears. So we have the typical black one and the blue one. I believe this was a sports edition one as well. Probably EA, and just for you, Peter and Justin. EA, it's in the game. The Sega Nomad. So this was the portable Genesis console. You plug your Genesis cart right in there, you play it on the screen, or you can plug it into a TV. It also has a controller too, so you can play your 2-player games in the hotel room. Then we have the Neo Geo Color Pocket. This is a very cool little handheld. First of all, it's a nice colored LCD screen. It's got these nice buttons. There's such great feedback. This is what I love, the directional pad. Oh, that's great. That is so great. I mean, you're playing that game and you know, you're getting that feedback. You know you got it. And then last we have the PSP, which I never play this thing because this thing hurts my hands more than anything. I could probably play all of these things except that one. But, oh, there's nowhere for my hands to go when I'm on the buttons. But still, you know, Sony gave it a shot. They tried the handheld market, and they're doing all right. All right, so the stuff down here, because of how close it is to the wall and the black shelves, it is nearly impossible to get down here and get a good view. So I'm just going to try to pull some stuff out and show it to you real quick. Whereas the systems that I showed you earlier were all already connected to the TV, ready to play. These are not, but mostly because these are the systems that pretty much nobody ever asks to play. That said, we do have a nice FC Twin, and I have been able to play some Super Famicom games on this, so that was kind of convenient in that regard. We have an Odyssey 300, which is just a Pong system, so nothing real special there. It is interesting to note that the system and the controllers are all in one. These do not come out. You have to sit that close to the table and everything. For our hernia, for our CDI games, this is the CDI that we have. This thing looks more like an archaic VCR than a video game system. That in mind, whenever you're at a thrift store, maybe make sure that you're checking out some of the old electronics, because it could be very easy to pass right by one of these and get a great deal on it. Let's face it, if somebody else thinks it's a VCR, you can get a CDI for just a couple of bucks. Oh, I'm gonna break myself putting it back. I don't know if this really counts as a video game system. It is a learning window from VTech, an old one too. And we saw this at a flea market. It was really cheap. It had the box and everything is in it. It actually has some boxed games inside of it. We haven't messed with it, but it's like a dot matrix display, and it's kind of the classic, you know, what does the cat say? Bark is correct, because, you know, it's old and it forgets. Our ColecoVision project We found this thing without any hookups and missing a controller. We have since found an extra controller, but we are still looking for hookups to even be able to see if this thing works or not. Along with it, though, we do have the Coleco rollerball controller, and we showed that off in a garage sale pickup video. Down here on the bottom, another system that is just too big to fit in the shelves properly is the Odyssey 2. It's probably a little dusty because no one plays it. Unfortunately, like all of the controllers, everything that's wired on this thing is hardwired into the system, which kind of makes it a mess to try to move around. My wife got this for me, I believe, as a Valentine's Day present one year, and she got it complete in the box. It had the warranty information and everything. She's pretty good at what she does.
You know how much I paid for that? $7. I mean, I know you're not supposed to tell how much you paid for gifts, but I was actually pretty impressed that I got it system and box and everything, $7.
I'm pretty sure after our video with our music man Peter, everybody is familiar with the Atari XE and those lovely Easter egg pastel buttons. Look how beautiful that is. Not only do we have the big boy itself, the original Intellivision, which is freaking massive with the controllers with the nice little roller disc, which is a really cool idea. It's a shame they didn't work all that well. We also have the more compact Intellivision 2 with the same telephone controllers. So you're playing a game, you get a little hungry, you order some pizza. It's just that easy. It's the wave of the future. Speaking of waves of the future, how about the IntelliVoice? If you are familiar with the angry video game nerd, then undoubtedly you saw him play with this and play B-52 Bomber. And here at the end is an Atari 600 XL. Now, this is more of a home computer than a video game system, but it did have a cartridge slot. We got it for a really great price, so it was kind of a neat little novelty to have. Along with it, we have the 1050 floppy drive. So as you can maybe see from the side of the slot on the front, that is one of the 5-inch floppies, the actual floppies. And both of those things are fairly heavy. They're probably coated with lead and all other kinds of things. And the last thing, one of my favorites, just because it was so fun to get, is the Bally Astrocade. Now, we actually had this system already, but ours was in rough shape. Our power cord did not have the casing, and we did not have that lovely plastic tray that protects all of your Bally Astrocade games. If anybody is a fan of the old, now movie, National Lampoon's Vacation, the one where they go to Wally World, at the beginning of the movie, watch when they're planning the family trip with the family truckster. They're playing a game that looks very much like Pac-Man. They are using the Bally Astrocade to do so. And just another note, typically if you find these things, it's this shell that is missing or busted. So if you ever find one complete, you grab it, you take it home, you marry it, you have a fantastic life together. You do not want to pass that up.
Didn't you say that this Bally's is the same as the Bally's Casino?
It is. Yes, they wanted to get into the home gaming market because, you know, casino money isn't what it used to be, obviously. All right, and just to show you a quick look at a very messy room, we have a lot of stuff that we're hoping to show off to you in the future. We have the the plasma sword, which my wife was super happy to grab.
I don't know, there's different...
I think she's on demo mode.
There we go. That's supposed to make... There it goes.
But also down here we have a Wii Ottoman of all things. And it is obviously buried right now, but it does open up and you can see all kinds of funds, or it's got a bunch of space inside. There's a lot of fun stuff in there because we just threw a bunch of stuff in there. But some Link glasses, a Lego Star Wars countdown, which we would love to turn into an actual clock.
A blink.
We have some arcade-themed backpacks that my wife was
these
super happy to get.
Because first of all, it's Joust, so who doesn't love Joust? But then when you open it up, look, it looks like an arcade in
Nice.
here.
You can even put your quarters in. You need to rig that so you can actually put quarters in and just like rob little kids of their money.
And the Space Invaders one, same thing. See? Isn't that cute? I love it.
We got some fun hats, a Sonic hat and a Mario hat. We also have the Needler here.
And it lights up.
If you could see it lighting up there, which is a lot of fun. And it's Nerf
Yeah, it's a Nerf
esque darts. I don't know, can't remember if it's officially Nerf or not.
No, it's not.
On our futon, it's usually in a little nicer state, but we've had some people come over and they love to throw the plushies around.
Yeah.
You saw the Master Sword. We've got some fun pillows, the Dr. Mario Nintendo pillow. These figures right here are from a game called Carcassonne. They're meeples. We have some fun stuff along the back.
Battery ran out of this one, but it does the do 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 do.
You have the bomb that blows up. Cat Luigi and Rosalina are having a little date. Goomba's going after some Pikmin. Bullet Bill's running into a warp pipe with the power of a power mushroom. We've got some more fun pillows. The Super Nintendo controller and the Link to the Past cartridge. Luigi's just, I guess, sitting on Peach's lap. Jeez.
What you doing, Luigi?
Gosh, dude. There's my messenger bag, a Nintendo one. Sadly, I've had to retire it, though, after so many years. And then coming along the backside, of course, you got the DK bongos. This is where the light's going to get a little iffy as we're moving around. Our mushroom lamp. The little Wind Waker toy set.
No, we knew this wasn't, it's a Lego figure, but we thought it looked like was it a Sheikah?
A Yiga.
Yiga, that's what it was.
Going
Yiga.
after the bananas.
Yeah, it's a Lego guy, but...
Just a real quick note, we have game-related coasters. So we got some bricks there.
There's the bricks.
We've got a question block there. An empty block there. As well as underneath the puppet. One of the power blocks. Got some Metroids, a big Metroid and a little Metroid. The Legend of Zelda. These are the Sword and Shield set, which are really cool
Which
looking.
they're necklaces.
I still love this one right there. From Majora's Mask. Oh, it's such an awesome looking sword. You have the Contra guys out and shooting things up next to the gamer bowl, so you've got your controller as well as plenty of room to put some snacks or, extra guns.
This is a thumb drive, and it's from the Biohazard, but see, it's actually a thumb drive. But then it's also a key, so it, goes in with the game.
This was a fun craft that Lacey had done. She took a non-working, it's okay, it was a non-working GameCube, and we opened it up, tore the guts out, and turned it into a tissue box. You have Groot consoling Juggernaut with Deadpool's head because, oh man.
It's just way too funny.
So sad. I mean, it's got that little pinhead on such a big body. You have the creepy Woody. He is hanging out on top of the Resident Evil house with Toad flipping you the bird like he does. The VHS tape and the note
Very
there are
impressed
also
with this.
from the Resident Evil 7, the Ultimate Collection.
They made that look so realistic.
Oh, and in case you're wondering, we do have modern consoles, obviously. So down here we have a dusty PS3 that doesn't see the love that it used to. The PS4 that gets a little more love than the PS3. We've got the Xbox One. This was the Minecraft edition, actually. And I actually like the white design. It looks really sharp. Up here, they don't always live out here in the open like this, but just to see, we have the NES Classic, and then the SNES Classic. And back here, there's the Switch with the lovely NES dock sock to hopefully keep that screen nice and safe. Spoilers, you're not supposed to see that yet. And then over here, tucked behind,
Wait, show her my Korra.
we have the PSVR and a nice charging station for some Move controllers and a regular controller. And yes, there's a jingling Korok.